Jason Statham spots a terrified black girl making a hidden SOS signal in a quiet park. What he does next uncovers a massive child trafficking ring and saves 12 innocent lives. Watch the unbelievable true story that's inspiring millions and exposing evil in plain sight. Like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on this powerful and emotional journey. What if a quiet walk through the park turned into a moment that rewrote someone's destiny forever? What if Jason Statham, the man known for his unshakable calm under pressure, was about to stumble across something that would test not his fists, but his heart? This isn't the kind of story that starts with fanfare or fireworks. No, this story began on a cloudy Tuesday morning in a park most people walked through without a second thought. The sky was painted in muted grays, the trees still slick with dew from a night of light rain, and the air carried that cool, earthy scent that made early walks feel like something sacred. Jason was no stranger to routine. He liked his mornings quiet, unbothered, and simple. No stunts, no cameras, just him, the open path, and the steady rhythm of his boots against the pavement. The park was his temporary escape from the chaos of his film sets and public life. It was the one place where people rarely bothered him, and he liked it that way. No security, no sunglasses, just Jason, a hooded sweatshirt, a thermos of black coffee in his hand, and a 1,000-yard stare that usually kept strangers at bay. But that morning, something was different. It wasn't the silence. He loved the silence. It wasn't the way the clouds hung low in the sky, or the way the birds seemed oddly quiet. It was her, a small girl, sitting alone on a worn green bench by the duck pond, with her back straight, eyes forward, and hands clenched tightly in her lap. She couldn't have been more than 10, maybe 9, a black girl, skinny, with her hair in neat twin braids tied with faded pink ribbons that looked like they'd seen better days. She wore a denim jacket far too large for her small frame and a pair of blue sneakers that were scuffed and unlaced. At first glance, she looked like any other kid who had wandered off to get a moment to herself. But Jason had a knack for noticing the details others missed. It was what made him who he was, on screen and off. She wasn't fidgeting like most kids did. She wasn't distracted by a phone, or humming, or watching ducks like a child would. She was still, too still. Her eyes weren't looking around in curiosity. They were locked straight ahead, like she was trying not to blink. Her lips trembled just slightly, but her hands were what caught Jason's eye. At first, it looked like she was just playing with her fingers. But as he got closer, he slowed his pace, and that's when he saw it. She curled her thumb in her palm and closed her fingers around it. A small, subtle movement. But Jason's breath caught in his throat. He knew that gesture. It wasn't random. It was the international SOS signal for abuse. He'd seen the campaign years ago, an awareness video online showing how victims, especially children, could silently cry for help when words weren't safe. It was so simple most people would miss it. A closed fist with the thumb tucked in, a lifeline in plain sight. Jason stopped walking. He looked around. No one else had noticed. A man sat on a nearby bench, feeding breadcrumbs to pigeons, too busy talking on the phone to pay attention. A jogger ran by with headphones in. A woman with a stroller passed the girl without even glancing at her. But Jason saw, and the way the girl looked up at him, just once, confirmed it. She didn't say a word, but her eyes screamed, "Please don't walk away." Jason's jaw tightened. He glanced again around the park, slow, methodical. That's when he spotted him. A man, maybe in his late 30s, tall, wiry, with a black ball cap pulled low over his forehead and a gray hoodie zipped up to his chin. He was standing just a few yards away, pretending to watch the pond. But his eyes weren't on the ducks. They were on the girl. Every few seconds, his gaze would shift back to her, then around the park, like he was waiting for someone to notice, or for no one to. Jason turned back toward the girl and saw it again. The subtle squeeze of her fist. Thumb tucked in, fingers wrapped tight. Her message hadn't changed. She needed help. He started walking toward her. Slowly. No sudden movements. He didn't want to spook her. He didn't want to alert the man either. As he got closer, he let his coffee thermos fall into the grass, a deliberate move. He bent down to pick it up, using the motion to angle his body closer to the girl without drawing attention. "Hey there," he said, voice low, calm, like he was talking to a skittish animal. "That's a strong little fist you've got there." The girl flinched, but she didn't run. Her eyes flicked toward him, terrified. Jason crouched a little. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "I saw you. I know what that means. You're safe now." She blinked. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Then Jason heard the footsteps behind him. Quick, light, measured. "Something I can help you with, mate," the man in the hoodie said. Jason stood up, slowly. He turned to face him. Was just saying hi to the kid. She looked lonely. The man's eyes narrowed. "She's my niece." Jason raised an eyebrow. "That right?" "Yeah. Her mom asked me to take her out for some air. She gets nervous around strangers." Jason glanced back down at the girl. Her eyes hadn't left him. Her fists were still clenched. "She's got a signal for nervousness, does she?" Jason asked evenly. The man's lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, no one moved. Then a man reached out to grab the girl's wrist. Jason stepped between them. "I don't think she wants to go with you," he said, his voice quiet but cold. The man laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You one of those celebrity types who think they're a cop now?" Jason didn't blink. "No," he said, "but I know what I saw, and I know the law." The man stepped forward. Close. Too close. And that's when the girl did something that changed everything. She reached for Jason's hand. She didn't say a word, but the act itself said more than 1,000 screams could have. Jason's fingers wrapped around hers instinctively. The man's face changed. His entire body tensed. And that's when Jason knew, for sure, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't some weird coincidence. This was real. And this man wasn't letting her go without a fight. Jason's mind began to race. The park was too open. He couldn't confront him here. Not without scaring the girl or tipping the man off too much. He needed help. Fast. But calling the cops would take too long. And if this guy bolted, who knew how many more kids would vanish before they caught him? Then Jason remembered something. Just a few blocks from here, there was a small community outreach center where his friend Riley volunteered. She was ex-police, now working in child advocacy. If Jason could get this girl there, she'd be safe, no matter what this man tried. "I think you should leave," Jason said, tightening his grip on the girl's hand. The man sneered. "You don't know who you're messing with." Jason's eyes hardened. "I think I do." The man stepped forward again, and that's when Jason made the decision. He scooped the girl up into his arms, fast, protective, controlled, and took off down the path. The man cursed behind him, shouting, but Jason didn't stop. The girl clung to him like a lifeline, burying her face in his chest. He didn't care if people stared. He didn't care if someone thought he was the one causing trouble. He knew what he was doing, and he wasn't letting her go. He ran past startled dog walkers, past joggers who jumped out of the way, until he reached the edge of the park and burst out onto the street, weaving through foot traffic and crossing without waiting for the signal. The center was close. He just had to make it one more block. The girl hadn't said a word, but she didn't need to. Her grip on his hoodie was enough to tell him everything. Behind him, he could hear footsteps, fast ones. The man was chasing them. Jason kept running, the building in sight now. Bright blue door, white sign, a beacon. The girl stirred in his arms. "That's it," he said. "We're almost there. Just hold on." He reached the steps of the building and pounded on the door. It flew open, and Riley appeared, startled. "Jason, what?" But before she could finish, Jason stepped inside, placing the girl gently on the floor. "Lock it," he said. In a moment, the bolt clicked. The heavy metal lock clicked into place, and the tension in Jason's shoulders didn't ease. It only grew sharper, more focused. He turned to face Riley, whose brows were already furrowed as she knelt down beside the trembling girl on the floor. Her years in law enforcement kicked in instantly, her voice soft and non-threatening, hands open and visible as she spoke. "Hey there, sweetheart. You're safe now. My name's Riley. Can you tell me your name?" The girl didn't answer. She just kept her small hands balled into fists in her lap, her body pulled tight into herself like she wanted to disappear. Jason crouched beside her, offering the same calm presence he had used back in the park. Her fingers slowly uncurled, but she didn't speak. Instead, her eyes flicked toward the blue door, then up at Jason, then down again. Riley glanced up at him. "Where did you find her?" "Park. She made the signal, the one for abuse. Riley's eyes widened slightly. You're sure? She did it twice. The guy said he was her uncle, but she reached for me when I stood between them. He followed us. I think he's still out there. Riley nodded and stood up quickly, pulling a handheld radio from the charging station near the reception desk and pressing a button. Dispatch, this is Riley at Center 9. I have a possible abduction victim, approximately 10 years old, brought in by Jason Statham. Suspect may be in the area. Caucasian male, late 30s, gray hoodie, black baseball cap, last seen on foot outside our location. Requesting immediate units and child services. Static crackled briefly, then a calm voice responded. Units en route. ETA 5 minutes. Keep the building secure. Jason stood and turned toward the door, peering through the narrow glass pane. The street outside looked calm, deceptively so. Cars passed. People walked. But his gut told him something wasn't right. He knew the look in that man's eyes. There was no panic in them, no fear. Just calculation. That wasn't someone who had gotten caught by chance. That was someone who had done this before. Someone who would do it again. Riley placed a gentle hand on his arm. Come away from the door. Let the uniforms handle him. Jason didn't move at first. Then he turned and walked toward the front counter, fists clenched at his sides. Riley, he said quietly, I don't think that guy was acting alone. She raised an eyebrow. Why do you say that? Jason exhaled slowly, processing the memory. Because the way he was watching her, he wasn't panicked when I confronted him. He looked ready, like he was prepared to deal with someone interfering. And when I ran with her, I didn't hear just one pair of footsteps behind me. There were more. Riley's face went still. Then she nodded slowly and turned to the girl again. Sweetheart, she said softly, was there more than one man with you? The girl hesitated. Then, after several seconds, she gave the smallest nod. Jason's stomach twisted. Riley rose to her full height. We need to get her out of here. If this is bigger than one guy. That's when the power cut out. The fluorescent lights above flickered once, then died with a dull hum. The radio in Riley's hand went silent. The buzzing white noise from the overhead vent stopped mid-whir, and the room fell into a heavy, unnatural silence. Jason didn't wait. He moved fast, grabbing the girl and pulling her behind a reception desk. Riley was already reaching for the emergency light switch. When it clicked on, a faint red glow bathed the room, barely enough to see more than shapes and silhouettes. Jason crouched behind the desk, his voice low. We have a back exit. Yes, Riley answered, but it locks from the outside. It's not an easy escape route. Jason looked toward the front again, just as a dark figure passed by the window. Riley saw it too. Stay with her, Jason said. Jason. He didn't wait. He crept toward the side hallway, past the break room and down the corridor to the back door. He peered through the tiny slit of glass and saw nothing. Just a brick alleyway. Empty, silent. But silence didn't mean safety. He turned back, jogging toward the front, and saw Riley helping the girl into a coat. The little one's hands were still trembling, her face pale. Jason crouched beside her. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded. He looked at Riley. We're not waiting. If the power's been cut, it wasn't an accident. They're not going to knock on the door with flowers. Riley hesitated for only a second, then nodded. There's a safe house about 3 blocks from here. Underground entrance. Police station's 2 blocks past that. Jason stood and held the girl's hand. She gripped him like he was her last anchor to earth. They moved fast through the hallway, past darkened offices and toward the back door. Jason checked it again. Still clear. Then he opened it, and they slipped out into the alley. The cold air hit them like a slap. Riley took point, moving quickly but cautiously. Jason stayed at the rear, eyes constantly scanning. They crossed the alley, moved down the narrow service road, then turned right into a residential neighborhood. A few porch lights flickered. One dog barked in the distance. But otherwise, it was still. Too still. They made it 2 blocks before Jason saw him again. The man from the park. But he wasn't alone. 2 others flanked him now. One was tall and thin, with tattoos up his neck. The other stocky, with a shaved head and hands that looked like they'd broken more than a few bones in their time. They were walking, slowly, purposefully, down the sidewalk from the opposite direction. "Jason," Riley said, her voice tense. "Left. Now." They turned into a side street and began jogging. The girl held on tight. Jason could hear footsteps pick up behind them. More than 3 now. Maybe 5. "They're closing in," he muttered. The safe house was ahead. They rounded the corner and saw it. An unmarked door set into the brick wall of a laundromat. Riley pulled out a key and jammed it into the lock. Click. They pushed inside just as a voice shouted from behind them. "Hey!" The door slammed shut. Jason threw the bolt just as a fist pounded into the wood from the outside. The girl screamed and buried her face in Riley's coat. Jason turned to Riley. "How long can we stay here?" Riley's jaw clenched. "Long enough for backup to arrive. If they don't get to the front door first." Jason turned away, pacing. He couldn't sit still. This wasn't just some kidnapping gone wrong. This was a coordinated operation. These men had cut the power, tracked them, moved in teams. They were organized, professional. That girl wasn't their first. And if Jason had a bet, she wouldn't have been their last. Unless he did something. That's when he made the decision. "I'm going after them," he said. Riley's head snapped toward him. "What? You heard me. I'm not going to sit here while these people keep doing this. This was planned. There's more of them. Maybe even more kids. If we wait for the police to put the pieces together, it could take weeks. Months. How many more will disappear in that time?" "You're not a cop, Jason. You're an actor." "I'm a human being," he said. "And I've seen enough to know we can't wait." Riley stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and handed him something. A phone. Unlocked. "It's his," she said. "The man from the park. I picked it off the desk when you were watching the door. He dropped it during the chase." Jason took it. The screen was cracked, but it lit up with a swipe. No passcode. Inside were texts. Dozens of them. Names. Ages. Locations. Times. Jason's heart sank. "This isn't just a few guys," he whispered. "This is a ring." Riley nodded grimly. "Welcome to the other side of the world, Jason. This is what we fight every day." Jason looked down at the girl. She had curled into the corner of the safe room, blanket around her, eyes finally starting to flutter with exhaustion. But even as sleep threatened to take her, her hand remained clenched. This time not in fear, but instinct. He turned back to Riley. "I'm going to shut them down. All of them." Riley's voice was steady. "Then you'll need help." Jason nodded once. And just like that, everything changed. What started as a walk in the park had become a war. One that Jason never asked for. One that no one warned him about. But one he couldn't walk away from anymore. Because that little girl, she was just the beginning. Jason didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the girl's face. Those wide, terrified eyes, the silent fist she formed, the way she reached out for him like he was her last hope. But more than that, he saw the names in that phone. Dozens of them. First names, some ages. Cryptic nicknames. Random timestamps. Abbreviated locations. Maya, 9, LVP 17. Drew, 13, third pickup Sunday. Ella, 11, WLK Q4. Hold 6 p.m. A code of sorts hidden in plain sight. The police took the phone into evidence. But Jason had already taken pictures, every screen, every message before he handed it over. Riley didn't protest. She understood. She'd seen how he looked when he read through them, how he paced like a caged animal afterward. Jason wasn't acting anymore. He wasn't playing the tough guy in a movie. He wasn't pretending to care because a script said so. He was in it now, and there was no going back. Riley arranged for the girl, whose name, they finally learned, was Zuri, to be taken into protective custody with a trauma-informed foster family while her parents were traced. She didn't say much, but when Jason knelt beside her the next day, she looked him in the eye and said the one thing that mattered. "You didn't leave." That was all he needed. He left Riley's office and didn't go home. He drove across the city to a place he hadn't been in years. A building in East London, small, quiet, forgettable on the outside. Inside, however, it housed something different. A private security firm, technically. But beneath that label were ex-intelligence, former operatives, retired law enforcement, people who had seen and done more than they could ever put on a resume. Jason knocked twice, then once, and waited. The door opened, and a man in his 50s with gray stubble and eyes that looked like they hadn't forgotten a single detail in 20 years stepped forward. Well, the man said, voice gruff. "Never thought I'd see you come through that door again." Jason stepped inside. "I need a favor, Lynn, and I need it now." They sat down in a concrete room that smelled faintly of coffee and gun oil. Jason laid the photos on the table, screenshots of the messages from the phone. He gave Lynn the rundown. The girl, the man in the park, the ambush at the center, the texts, the narrow escape. By the time he finished, Lynn's expression had gone from casual curiosity to something closer to restrained rage. "These aren't just grab-and-go pervs," Lynn muttered, flipping through the images. "This is an operation. Time pickups. Rotation codes. This is a route map." Jason leaned forward. "Can you trace it?" "I can try," Lynn said, "but I'll need more than this. And if they're smart, they've already wiped their devices. Whoever's running this knows how to disappear. Then we'll make them reappear," Jason said. One by one. Lynn looked at him for a long time. "You sure about this? You want to play hero in the movies, that's one thing. But this is the real world. These people don't care who you are. They won't hesitate to put a bullet in you and leave your body in a freezer." Jason didn't blink. Let them try. Within hours, Lynn had a team digging into the texts. The first break came when they traced one of the code entries, WLKQ4, to a real location. Walkley Quarter, a known district near the shipping docks. It wasn't a red light area, not obviously. But Lynn found 3 prior missing children cases in the past 4 months from that region. All girls, all between 8 and 12. None of them found. That was all Jason needed. He didn't go in like a wrecking ball. Not yet. Instead, he parked 3 blocks away, dressed down, hood pulled low. He walked the streets for 2 days, unnoticed, observing, waiting. He saw the pattern. Men in nondescript vans, hanging around corners too long, women who smiled too big, who stood outside shops and never went in. It was there, right under everyone's noses, hiding in daylight. On the 3rd day, Jason watched a girl, not much older than Zuri, step out of a corner store, glance around nervously, and begin walking fast down the sidewalk. Behind her, 2 men in a dark van pulled out of the alley. Jason's blood ran cold. He moved instantly, ducking into traffic and cutting across the street. The van gained speed. The girl picked up her pace, clutching a backpack tightly against her chest. Her eyes darted everywhere, filled with the same silent panic Jason had seen before. She knew. Jason reached her just as the van pulled up to the curb and the side door slid open. He stepped between her and the van. One of the men inside leaned out, fake smiling. "Hey, her mom sent us, said to bring her home." Jason didn't move. "Try again." The man's smile faltered. "Mate, this doesn't concern." Jason grabbed the door and slammed it shut so hard the glass cracked. The driver cursed and jumped out, swinging at Jason with a baton. Jason sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist mid-swing, and twisted. The baton dropped. Jason caught it with his free hand and brought the handle down on the man's knee. He buckled. The second guy came around the front, pulling a taser from his coat. Jason kicked the man on the ground into the other's legs. They collapsed in a tangle. People started shouting. Someone pulled out a phone. Jason turned to the girl. "Are you okay?" Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded just once. "Stay with me," Jason said. Police sirens were already howling in the distance. The commotion had drawn attention. Jason stood between the girl and the fallen men until 2 officers skidded onto the scene. Guns drawn. Command shouted. It took only minutes for the scene to be under control. The girl was taken aside. Jason, once again, gave his statement. This time, though, the cops recognized him. "You're the guy who saved that girl, Zuri, from the park." Jason gave a curt nod. "I need to talk to your department head. Now." Within hours, Jason found himself in a conference room downtown, the walls covered in missing persons posters, most faded with age. A senior detective named Alvarez stood across from him, arms crossed, jaw tight. "We've known something was happening," Alvarez said, "but no proof, no leverage. Until now." Jason laid the photos out, then the report from the van incident. Then Zuri's statement. "This is proof," he said, "but it's not enough. You need to shut the whole network down. I'm going to help you do it. Alvarez raised an eyebrow. You planning to go undercover, Mr. Statham? Jason didn't smile. No, I plan to make enough noise that they come to me. The room went quiet. Jason leaned forward. They operate in silence. That's their power. But if someone starts pulling threads in public, if someone starts kicking doors in and asking questions that no one wants to answer, they'll panic. They'll move. And when they do, we'll be ready. Alvarez studied him for a long time, then finally said, "You have 2 weeks. That's it. After that, we pull back and let the agencies do their job." Jason stood. "That's all I need." And just like that, the chase began. Over the next 12 days, Jason moved through the city like a shadow. He used his connections, spoke with shelter workers, teachers, trauma counselors, anyone who had seen something and didn't know where to take it. He followed leads, pieced together patterns. Each one brought him closer to the truth. It wasn't just local. It wasn't just a city. It was bigger. And if the final clue was right, it was about to reach across borders. The last message on the phone, one Jason hadn't noticed until that night, was simple. Final pickup, 12. LVP 9. Thursday. Warehouse. Midnight. Export. Jason's heart stopped. Export. 12 children. Midnight. This Thursday. He checked the calendar. That was tomorrow. The moment Jason saw the word export, something inside him snapped. It wasn't anger. Not the kind you let explode in a bar fight or in a boxing ring. No, this was colder. Sharper. A fury, so still it felt like ice in his veins. It wasn't just about Zuri anymore. This was about every name in that phone. Every kid who vanished and never came home. Every child who made a silent fist and was met with silence. Every parent who woke up to an empty bed and never got answers. He didn't care what it cost. He was going to stop this. And he was going to do it tomorrow night. Lynn's voice came through the Bluetooth earpiece as Jason sat in the parked car overlooking the warehouse district. "We've confirmed the location. Building B4 on the corner of Liverpool Avenue. Security cameras offline. Movement inside starting since 5 p.m. 2 vans parked behind. All the signs match." Jason adjusted the Kevlar vest beneath his jacket. How many inside? At least 8 armed men. Could be more. Infrared picked up at least 4 smaller heat signatures, likely the kids. Jason's jaw clenched. Only 4. Could be the rest are arriving later. Or already loaded. Jason checked his watch. 10:17 p.m. He had less than 2 hours before the shipment was set to move. "Where are the cops?" "Staging 2 blocks out," Len said. Commander Alvarez agreed to give you a 15-minute head start. After that, they move in. No exceptions. Jason chuckled darkly. Generous of him. "You sure about this?" Len asked. Jason's hand dropped to the grip of his baton tucked in his coat. "I've never been more sure of anything." He stepped out of the car, the cold night air biting at his face. The warehouse loomed ahead like a sleeping beast, silent, dark, and filled with danger. He didn't walk to the front gate. He moved along the alley, sticking to the shadows, until he found the side access, an old maintenance door, partially rusted, sealed with a cheap padlock. One solid kick and it snapped open. He slipped inside. The interior of the warehouse was massive. Stacks of crates towered like silent sentinels, blocking his view. Metal scaffolding ran along the ceiling. A faint hum echoed through the space. Generators, maybe, somewhere deeper in voices. Low tense. Jason moved like a ghost, slipping between shadows. His breath slowed. His body entered that state he knew so well. The one where time stretched, where every step felt like a decision carved into stone. Then he heard it. A child's voice. Muffled. Then another. He followed the sound. At the far end of the warehouse, behind a partition wall, he found them. 8 children, huddled together, eyes wide, wrists bound in plastic ties. Some were crying silently. One had clearly been beaten, blood on his shirt, a cut over his eyebrow. Jason's heart shattered, but before he could move forward, he heard footsteps. 2 men, armed, laughing as they rounded the corner. Jason didn't hesitate. He waited until they were within arm's reach, then exploded forward. He grabbed the first man's rifle and drove it upward, slamming it into the steel beam overhead. The weapon clanged loudly. The man shouted, but Jason was already turning, grabbing his arm, and twisting hard. The bone snapped with a wet crack. The second man raised his pistol. Jason drove his elbow into his face, knocking him out cold. He turned to the children. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here to help." The kids stared at him in disbelief. "I know you're scared, but you're going to be okay." He began cutting their bonds one by one. Then a voice rang out from behind him. Well, I was wondering when you'd show up." Jason turned slowly. A tall man stood there, bald, lean, eyes like frost. He wasn't holding a weapon. He didn't need to. Behind him stood 4 more men, all armed. "You don't know what you're doing," the tall man said. "You think this is about one warehouse? One night? We've been building this network for 10 years. And you're one man with a hero complex." Jason stepped forward. "Funny. That's exactly what people said the last time someone tried to hurt a little girl in a park." The man smirked. "You should have walked away." Jason didn't wait for the threat to finish. He moved like a bullet, grabbing the fallen pistol from the unconscious guard. He fired once, hitting the nearest attacker in the thigh. The man screamed and fell. Chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out, bullets sparking against the metal shells as Jason dove behind a stack of crates, rolling and coming up behind another man. He disarmed him with a brutal blow to the jaw and swung his rifle like a bat, cracking it against the second skull. But the tall man was gone. Jason swept the floor, heart pounding. The children were still huddled, screaming. He needed to end this, fast. He bolted toward the back of the warehouse, dodging fire, smashing into anything in his path. He tackled the last 2 gunmen near the exit, slamming one into a crate so hard the wood splintered. The second tried to raise a knife. Jason grabbed his wrist and snapped it like a twig, then dropped him with a punch that echoed like a thunderclap. Then he heard the engine, the van. They were trying to flee, with 2 more kids in the back. Jason sprinted outside, just in time to see the vehicle speeding toward the loading dock gate. Without thinking, he ran. Full sprint. No plan. No strategy. Just momentum. He leapt onto the back bumper as the van swerved onto the street. He climbed quickly, pulled himself to the roof. The van jerked wildly, trying to throw him off. Jason slid, grabbed the luggage rack, then dropped down, smashing his boot through the rear window. The driver shouted. Jason dove inside. The kid screamed. He crashed into the front seats, grabbing the wheel. The driver fought him. The van veered, tires shrieking. Jason elbowed the man in the throat and yanked the wheel hard, sending them skidding sideways into a lamppost. Everything stopped. Smoke, glass, silence. Jason crawled to the back and opened the doors. The 2 kids stared at him, crying. "You're okay," he said, voice ragged. "You're okay." Then, behind him, police sirens. Dozens of them. The response team had arrived. Officers poured in like a wave, weapons drawn, ordering the warehouse secure. The children inside were carried out one by one, wrapped in blankets, shielded from the cameras now appearing at the gate. Alvarez met Jason near the sidewalk, staring at the wrecked van and the broken bodies left behind. "You said 15 minutes, Jason muttered. Alvarez nodded. "And you took 20. Jason laughed once bitterly, but then from the side he saw her. Zuri. She was standing near Riley, watching him with wide eyes. Someone had brought her to the scene after it was safe. She hadn't let go of a teddy bear someone had given her earlier, and now she held it tightly against her chest. She walked up slowly. Jason dropped to one knee. She stared at him, then said, "Did you find the others?" Jason nodded, voice thick. "Yeah, kid. We found them." She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Tight. Jason didn't say anything. He just held her back. And in that moment, the weight of everything he had done, everything he had seen, everything he had fought through, it all melted away. Because this hug, this meant he had done something that mattered. In the days that followed, the world changed. Not because of a movie, not because of a headline-grabbing fight scene or a new blockbuster trailer, but because one man saw a silent cry for help and didn't look away. The warehouse raid was front-page news by sunrise. Hollywood star saves 12 children from trafficking ring. Jason Statham uncovers criminal network in London. Real-life hero. Actor risks life to save kids from export van. The headlines flooded social media. News anchors stumbled over their words, trying to piece together how the actor who played hardened anti-heroes on screen had become one in real life. Footage from a scene, leaked by bystanders, officers, even body cams, spread across every platform. The van crash. The children wrapped in blankets. Jason, bruised and bloodied, guiding Zuri into an ambulance while flashing lights painted his silhouette in red and blue. But Jason didn't read the articles. He didn't watch the interviews. He wasn't interested in the praise or the clamor. Not when there was still more to do. He returned to the outreach center 3 days after the raid. Quietly, without press, without entourage. Riley was waiting for him inside, a folder in hand. "They're safe," she said. "All 12 are in protective care. Medical exams confirmed long-term trauma for most, but no fatalities. Thanks to you, they get another chance." Jason exhaled slowly, rubbing the tension from the back of his neck. "It wasn't just me." "No," Riley said, her voice firm. "But it started with you. Because you noticed." He nodded. Then his eyes fell on the drawing pinned to the wall behind her desk. It was from Zuri. A crayon sketch, bright and messy and filled with meaning. It showed a park bench, a man with a hoodie and hard eyes standing nearby, and a little girl making a fist. And across from her, another man, a square jaw, a bald head, a calm gaze reaching toward her hand. There were no words. There didn't need to be. Jason stared at it for a long moment. Then he turned to Riley. "I want to start something." Her eyebrow lifted. "What kind of something?" He paused, then said, "A program. Not just a foundation with a name. I want it to be real. Schools, parks, malls, everywhere. I want kids taught how to signal for help. I want every parent, every teacher, every store clerk to recognize it. I want it printed on receipts and posted on bathroom doors. I want the signal to become louder than the silence these kids have been trapped in." Riley blinked, stunned by the clarity in his voice. "And I want safe centers," he continued. "Places like this one. More of them. Places where they can go and not be turned away. I'll fund it. I'll speak on it. Hell, I'll fight for it if I have to. But this can't be where it ends." Riley swallowed hard. "You're serious?" Jason nodded once. "They can't all be lucky enough to run into someone in a park. We need to build a world where they don't have to be lucky." That was the day the Signal Safe initiative was born. Within weeks, it spread. Public service campaigns rolled out in partnership with NGOs, law enforcement, and Jason's personal team. A viral video showed Zuri's drawing, animated gently, narrated by Jason himself in a quiet, powerful voice that spoke to every viewer like they were the only one listening. "This is Zuri," he said. "She made a signal. A small one most people miss. But if someone hadn't seen it, hadn't known what it meant, she wouldn't be here today. There are more like her. More fists. More silent cries. It's time we started listening." The video hit 200 million views in a week. Celebrities, politicians, activists, they all joined in. Not for likes. Not for PR. Because Jason didn't treat this like a brand. He treated it like a mission. By the end of the month, 50 schools had implemented the Signal curriculum. Posters went up in train stations, community centers, and fast food restaurants. Airline attendants were trained to look for the signal. Teachers began incorporating it into safety drills. And most importantly, kids started learning that someone would notice, that someone would care. Jason remained at the center of it, but never at the front. He didn't want to be the face. He wanted to focus on the kids, on the signal. He still trained every morning, still read scripts, still shot films. But people who met him said something had changed. He smiled more, but it was a different kind of smile. Not the practiced grin of red carpets and interviews. It was the quiet smile of a man who had found something more important than applause. Zuri visited him often. She was different now, brighter, stronger. She started karate classes, just like she said she would. She told Jason that her favorite move was the palm strike, because it was small but powerful. Like a signal, she said. He never forgot that. One night, a year after it all began, Jason stood on a stage. Not for an award, not for a premiere. It was a charity gala raising money for child protection programs across the world. The lights were low. The room was silent. and he stepped up to the microphone with no script in hand. He looked out at the crowd, then said quietly, "You all know me from the films, the fights, the explosions, but the biggest impact I ever made came from a walk in the park. No explosions, no cameras, just a little girl on a bench and a signal. A signal I was lucky enough to understand. One that saved 12 lives. But there are thousands more out there, and they need us to notice." He paused. "So if you remember anything tonight, forget my name. Forget the action scenes. Just remember the signal, and teach someone else. Because maybe next time, it won't be me in that park. Maybe it'll be you." He stepped back, and the applause that followed wasn't the kind that echoed from a performance. It was thunderous, full of weight. It wasn't clapping for a star. It was clapping for a man who refused to walk away. Afterward, backstage, a woman approached him with tears in her eyes. She introduced herself as the mother of a child who had gone missing 3 years earlier. Her daughter had never been found, but because of Jason's initiative, her son, Zoe's little brother, had learned the signal in school. And when he saw a girl making it at a train station a week before, he told his teacher, "That girl was rescued. Her captor arrested. Because my son knew what to look for," she said, "another family didn't have to live with what we live with." Jason didn't say anything for a long time. He just took her hand and nodded. Sometimes, the only thing stronger than words is silence shared between people who understand each other too deeply for language to reach. And so it continued. The Signal Safe program expanded to 30 countries in 2 years. More than 10,000 children were saved through reported signals. Dozens of trafficking rings were dismantled. Laws were passed. Training became mandatory in some regions. Jason didn't lead all of it, but his spark lit the flame. Still, for all the impact, Jason always said it came down to one thing. Not strength, not stardom, but attention, just noticing. The world had been noisy for so long that we forgot to listen to the smallest signals. The ones not shouted but whispered, not screamed but shown. And when someone did listen, everything could change. Sometimes a man just wants to go for a walk in the park. And sometimes fate hands him the most important mission of his life. Jason Statham didn't save the world, but he saved Zuri. And because of that, because he acted, because he refused to walk away, Zuri saved dozens more. Because now, when a little girl makes a fist in silence, someone always sees it.